My name is Logan Miller. I'm a corporal in the United States Marine Corps. I graduated from Carroll in 2011, and I actually enlisted between my junior and senior year into what's called the Delayed Entry Program. I went to San Diego, but I had to wait a year. I enlisted when I was 17 years old, but still had to graduate high school first. So 2 weeks after graduation, 2.5 weeks roughly, I found myself on an airplane headed to Marine Corps Recruit Depot San Diego out in California. And after boot camp, came home for a period of leave and got to see the family and back home in Fort Wayne. And then before too long, I found myself back on another airplane back out to San Diego, the airport, and then was on a bus up to Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton to the School of Infantry for Marine Combat Training. Joining the Marine Corps presented a challenge in and of itself. I wanted to be better than myself. I wanted to prove people wrong because I was told by quite a few that I would never make it, and I did. It actually started with wanting to join the Air Force. My father kind of talked me into joining the Air Force Reserves, and I was a little bit back and forth on whether I wanted to actually do that or not. That was about the beginning of my sophomore year in high school here at Carroll. But then I have most of my family members that were in the military were Marines. My grandfathers, cousins, uncles, they were all in the Marine Corps. Although they weren't aviation, military occupational specialties, I still wanted to follow into that aviation side and get the job skills as well for when I separate from active duty, whether it would be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later. My first deployment was supposed to be over to the Persian Gulf in support of OEF in Afghanistan. That was the beginning of the year 2013 in January. And we were actually a month and a half at sea because we had to do a detachment prior to heading over to the Persian Gulf, and they ended up doing a budget cut and our deployment got pulled. It wasn't until I went to VMFA 122 after VMFA 312, which was a land-based squadron, that I first deployed to Iwakuni, Japan. And while we were over there, we did detachments over to South Korea for an exercise called Max Thunder, which was supposed to be a show of force for North Korea. They didn't really like that too well. And then while we were there, we also went to another place in Japan called Misawa, Japan, and that was at the very northern tip of the mainland. The deployment of 2016 though, we went back to Iwakuni, Japan. And while we were there, we went to Kunsan Air Force Base in South Korea, just south of the DMZ, just by a few hours by car. It was pretty cool. I got to go up to the demilitarized zone into the joint security area where you're literally looking at North Korea just 100 feet in front of you in the actual line, and you could see North Korean guards and guardhouses, and it wasn't very normal feeling, just knowing that that's hostile area. I started working on F-18s when I was only 19 years old. I hadn't turned 20 yet, but yet I had the $30 million aircraft, roughly, in the pilot and anybody on the ground in my hands. And you had to take it seriously when you were out there working on these aircraft, because not only from in-flight safety aspects, but on the flight line and the tarmac itself is a hazardous area. And if your head isn't on the swivel, or if you're doing something you're not supposed to, you could get somebody hurt or killed, or yourself. So I think definitely the maturity and then the responsibility kind of ties in with that as well. Veterans Day means a lot to me, more so now that I am a veteran than before. I always think I had a understanding of it, having family members serving in the military, not only the Marine Corps, and then kind of having those discussions and hearing those stories and kind of getting a picture into their lives in the military. And that goes the same for any men and women that served or have served in the armed forces, and the sacrifices you make. You don't have to go to a combat zone. You're still sacrificing your time. Families, they don't get to see their loved ones when they're on deployments for 7 months to a year long. And so the sacrifices that we all make, and then the sacrifices that some make of giving it all, that's kind of something I reflect on, is the proud tradition of all the military branches, and those who stood up and raised their right hand and took the oath to serve this country and protect what we stand for. And so that's kind of what I think about when I think about Veterans Day, and what I reflect on, and how it's important to do that, to reflect and to acknowledge those who have served, because they took the oath and put themselves in harm's way and made those sacrifices so that way we could have the lives that we have here today.